Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Success Thursday this week with Kevin Pedersen. Hi, Kevin. Welcome back.
Thanks, Vasco.
So, Kevin, on Thursdays, we also talk about retrospectives, the main tool we use to reach that success we were just talking about. So share with us, what's your favorite retrospective format and why?
It's quite a tricky question, this one, because I'm of the belief that we shouldn't really try and run the same retrospective twice with a team. There's so many different varying ways of doing retrospectives that I try and mix it up quite a lot. One piece of advice I always give to Scrum Masters is when you observe the team throughout the sprint is see if you can pick up on something, some kind of thing you want to improve with the team, and then design your retrospective around that discussion so that they can kind of realize themselves how they can improve. And then maybe they'll come up with good ways to improve. So by doing that, your retrospective will always be different. That being said, there are some standard retrospectives which are always good go-tos, like your Mad, Sad, Glad, or your 4 L's, your liked, loved, lacked, learned. Those ones are always good go-tos if you don't particularly notice anything you want specifically to target. My personal favorite one of those go-tos is just to have a lean coffee. Get the team out the office, maybe go down to the local pub or something, if we're talking post-COVID or pre-COVID, and actually hold a lean coffee while having a couple of drinks. And I find that those conversations can be really eye-opening sometimes, and it generally generates topics that you might not have thought of or issues yourself at all.
Yeah, absolutely. The lean coffee out in the pub or walking in the park, whatever might be the most appropriate for a particular situation, is a great example of how retrospectives are really about helping people express what's going on, whether it is a problem or a success or a doubt or a need for help in some specific aspect. At least the way I read your recommendation is to open the conversation so that the topics that are important for the team members can come up without you having to search for them. Is that how you mean it?
Yes, absolutely. So like if as a Scrum Master, there's nothing specific you want to address with the team, because often there will be, then absolutely let the team take control of their own retrospective. And then you can just kind of guide the conversations and facilitate the conversations.
That was a great example of one of the core aspects of retrospectives, which is to have productive conversations that lead to improvements. Kevin, that was the retro, of course, but we use retrospectives in order to try to reach a successful outcome for our work. So how do you these days look at that question? What's success for a Scrum Master for you, Kevin?
Well, this has always been a tricky conversation to have. Is how do you know you're being successful as a Scrum Master, right? And it's not something that's easily measured. And like I said yesterday, if you were to ask the manager or whoever's leading the change in the organization, they might come up with some delivery-based metric, like we want the team to deliver more. And that's that is often not the real thing that they want. It's just what they think they want. So if you scratch a little bit more, you can find out a bit more about that, and it might turn into something else. But in terms of if you're a Scrum Master and you want to measure your own success, one good way I've found is to actually find out from other people what they expect of you. So maybe ask the team, as your Scrum Master, what is it you expect of me and how can we measure that? And do the same as well for your product owner. As the product owner, as your Scrum Master, I'm here to support you. What do you expect from me and how can we measure that? And again, for the stakeholders, or if even better, customers, if you can get to that level, is to ask the customers, what do you expect from this team and how can I help them do that and how do we measure that? So one metric we've put in recently with the team is we call it like a balanced scorecard metric, where at a sprint review, we'll ask the stakeholders who are there after the sprint review is finished to rate the team on their delivery. Did they deliver as much as you wanted? Did they deliver everything you wanted on a rating of 1 to 10? So, for example, how was the delivery from the team, from their point of view on what the team delivered? And then that gives us some kind of average that we can track over time, and we'll look for trends on that. And at the same time, we'll also ask the team at the retrospective, so how did you view the last sprint as a team? Were you comfortable? Did everything go according to plan? Or were you overburdened with work? Was it too stressful? And then you also they get to rate the sprints on a score of 1 to 10. And then by having those two metrics, they actually balance each other out, because what you can find is if you've got a really happy team, but then the stakeholders are saying, well, the delivery wasn't that great, then maybe the team's not pushing themselves enough, right? Maybe they're not trying to go that extra mile. Or if it's the other way around, if the stakeholders are really happy, it's awesome delivery, but the team is like, there was so much stress this sprint, then maybe the demand is too much on the team, and maybe we need to give the team a bit more space. So what you actually want to do is find a balance between those two where both are generally fairly happy. So those are the kind of metrics I would suggest looking at in terms of team metrics, and yourself as a Scrum Master, how do you rate your own performance in your service to the team and to the product owner?
I really like the reflection aspect of asking others how they evaluate your contribution to the team. I think that's a great way to get insights also as to what they expect, because sometimes people are not able to verbalize what they expect from you. But once you start getting feedback about concrete things like last sprint or this retro or whatever, you start learning, and then you start pushing that ability to deliver on what is expected from you. And then the idea of the balancing metrics is really important, not only from the perspective of stress, because you mentioned that, right? Like stakeholders very happy, but the team stressed out. That's not a good balance. But also because there are other balancing metrics to understand that actually everything we work with is a system. It's not just one thing. It's not just the amount of releases we do. It's also the level of stress in the QA team, for example. Maybe the testers are overworked because we're trying to do too many releases and in a hurry and do some sloppy coding and get a lot of work for QA, for example. So I think that's a very important concept, because at the end of the day, one of the core ideas of Scrum, and that was said way back when this was started, was to establish a sustainable pace, right? And I think that looking for balancing metrics is a very practical way of trying to get to that sustainable pace.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that, Kevin.
Thank you.
Part of a successful Scrum Master job is to help the product owner. Tomorrow we explore that critical role in Scrum, the product owner role. Tune in to learn about product owner anti-patterns, what you can do to help the product owner, and a real-life example of what a great product owner is and what made it so. Tomorrow on our Friday Product Owner episode. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.